I came across a few similes about how one should regard sensual pleasures. And how has a monk seen sensual pleasures in such a way that they have no underlying tendency for desire, affection, infatuation, and passion for sensual pleasures? Suppose there was a pit of glowing coals, deeper than a man's height, filled with glowing coals that neither flamed nor smoked. Then a person would come along who wants to live and doesn't want to die, who wants to be happy and recoils from pain. Then two strong men grab would grab each arm and drag them towards the pit of glowing coals. Then he would struggle to and fro. Why is that? For that person knows, if I fall in that pit of glowing coals, that will result in my death or deadly pain. And in the other simile, and how does a monk awakened to a way of conduct and a way of living that's such, when they live in that way, bad, unskillful qualities of desire and grief don't overwhelm him? Suppose a person was to enter a thicket full of thorns that have thorns in front and behind, to the left and right, below and above. So they would go forward mindfully and come back mindfully, thinking, may I not get any thorns? In the same way, whatever in the world seems nice and pleasant is called a thorn in the training of the noble ones. When they understand what a thorn is, they should understand restraint and lack of restraint.
Right, so thorns and burning embers. And well, the main thing to mention there, it's like that. So the second simile. So in the discipline of the noble ones, means the person has the right view, has understood the Four Noble Truths. They need to regard every pleasure and nice thing as a thorn. And how? What would that mean? Well, that would mean as if you're entering a jungle. So you have to enter a jungle, and there are lots of thorns around. So you have to be very careful. But the point to emphasize there, it's not that you have to learn how to be careful. It's about you have to learn how to regard nice things as thorns. Then carefulness, caution, that will come automatically. You will then be careful because it's dangerous. Because if people would read, I'm sure many people would have read that simile, and then mind would immediately kind of jump into a conclusion that, okay, so I need to be careful, I need to move carefully, I need to do this carefully. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you can do that, but that's not what this simile refers to. So you could try and emulate carefulness, but it won't be the carefulness that will result in fulfilling of the noble discipline. It wouldn't result in arahantship, unless you learn how to see these things as thorns. And that's why it says, if you see things as thorns, then you understand restraint and lack of restraint. In other words, you understand being careful and being uncareful. It's all rooted it's developing certain perceptions in regard to things that would otherwise be a basis for sensual desire, and so on. And it's same with the glowing pit. Like the sutta describes, and there are other suttas as well that talk about it. So your work, your understanding, your discernment, your sense restraint that you are doing at the time, all of the effort you put in should be not in, I will never make a mistake and I will be always careful and mindful and watch every turn I make. No, it should be towards discerning how to see sensuality as burning embers. Then sense restraint will be effortless. Dispassion will be outcome of it. Non-suffering, non-attachment will be the result of seeing this thing rightly. So the work is to recognize these perceptions of danger and peril in certain things that were otherwise basis for desire, as I said. And if you do so, you will not need to make the effort to restrain yourself. It will be preferred. And that's exactly in the first simile. So that man his mind, his intention want to be anywhere else in the world except in the burning pit. So when the nice thing that used to be a basis for sensuality manifests in the mind of a noble disciple, if he cultivates the perception of danger in it, as the Buddha would say, if he sees it as thorns and so on, he will not want to have it. So if he needs to eat, for example, he will eat as if he has to enter a jungle with it's full of thorns that can really mess him up. So he's very careful. Not careful in terms of the food, specifically what he eats, but careful in how he perceives whatever he eats. Am I lapsing the perception of thorns and embers and dangers that I have developed? The work is not, I need to work harder, I need to be more mindful of my movements, my thoughts, my intentions, my all of this. You can do that, but you need to work harder in terms of unobscuring the understanding and the correct perception of what sensuality really is. Because sensuality is factually like burning embers, like thorns. If it weren't so, you wouldn't be able to free yourself from it. So it doesn't matter how much you would try to see burning embers, it's just it would not be compatible. But because it is actually compatible, if you keep cultivating this perception in regard to it and working your way through layer by layer, then you get to see it for what it is. And that's the danger became apparent. And now you don't need to anymore make the effort to discern it. Now when sensuality arises, the danger is in its core. So there is no more confusion, there's no more doubt in regard to the nature of pleasing and nice things in the world. Doesn't mean you never see, hear, smell, taste, touch anything pleasing in the world. Just means whenever anything pleasing is experienced, the mind assumes the attitude of a thorny jungle. Because of that. Not because, oh, quickly, I must assume this attitude now in response to this. No, attitude of carefulness, cautiousness is automatic based on the clarity of your perception of thorn, amber, danger. It can harm me if I'm careless. If I allow that pleasure to sort of become underlined by craving for more.
Why am I not seeing the danger then?
Yeah.
What's obstructing me from not seeing the danger, which is a fact? That danger is a fact, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, you can state, oh, the danger is a fact, but that fact is not true to your experience because you still have passion. Because if you understood the fact of the danger in sensuality, you would be automatically dispassionate. So that's what you use as a measure of your understanding. So don't, because often when people talk about this as facts, oh yes, sensuality is dangerous. It's like, yeah, but are you now, factually, here and now, free from desire and lust towards anything pleasing in the world because of the fact you just stated? If the answer is no, means that's just an abstract fact, which is fine in itself, but often people confuse their own abstract facts for understanding. Oh yes, everything is impermanent. Look, anicca everywhere. Yeah, it's clear to me, but I don't even have a right view. I'm certainly not an arahant, but here I am talking about anicca. That's impossible. If you understood anicca even to the basic level, you'll be at least a sotapanna. That's what makes you a sotapanna. So it's fine to have abstract ideas and then obviously upgrade them, but the problem is when abstract ideas are taken as facts that now you don't need to do anything about. So in this particular instance, it's even the symptom that you have not understood the fact of the danger of sensuality is even more in your face, because multiple times during the day you're going to be engaging with sensuality, relishing, welcoming, planning, worrying on account of it. So it's just in your face, just showing you how not dispassionate you are.
Thorn arising.
Exactly. Thorn being recognized, carefulness induced. Embers presented, fighting these men that are dragging you there. Automatic.
So how to recognize the danger? How
to recognize the danger? Well, you have to take it on trust first. So the Buddha tells you that sensuality is actually dangerous, not worthy clinging to. It completely contradicts your entire experience. So you have an option now. Dismiss the Buddha, or if you had enough intelligence to see that there's a good chance he's right, because on other things they said, and because I am dissatisfied with existence and liability to dukkha and so on, you take it on trust. So it is unpleasant. So let me then see when pleasant, pleasing things manifest in my experience, in my mind. First and foremost, practice, keep the virtue and practice sense restraint. So that needs to be taken on trust initially. If you do that, then you will be able to allow these pleasing things to manifest in your mind without you automatically, impulsively breaking the precepts and acting towards them. And if you allow them to manifest in your mind, then you get to and start contemplating and discerning where, how, to what extent it is dangerous. Because the peril is there, but it's not apparent. Oh, this is a trap. I'm entering this corridor, but I've been warned before that this is how the traps look like. I could dismiss the warning, or I could be very careful and understand the trap before I get into it, and thus I don't get into it. If you understand how you're trapped, then I will learn how to walk through this corridor and not be trapped. But if I don't even know how I'm going to be trapped, I don't know what to be careful about. So, sense restraint, virtue, needs to be taken on account of that trust that the Buddha said something, even if that you don't necessarily see, but you accept and trust, but not as a goal in itself. Okay, that's it, I trust the Buddha. Now that I've accepted my sense restraint on trust, I get to see that in regard to which I need to practice sense restraint. I get to see the sensual thoughts enduring in my mind, pleasing objects trying to overwhelm me and beset me and so on, and I get to then not act upon it immediately, which means giving in and being trapped, dismiss them, which means running away and not passing through a corridor that you do need to pass. Sooner or later, when you come back, you will come back carelessly and get trapped again. And then you get to understand what that danger is. You can't understand it if you keep denying sensuality or blindly engaging with it. So it needs to manifest. Pleasing objects, you need to manifest in your mind, and you mustn't act out of it, and you must be able to endure it without acting towards it or losing perspective. And then look, danger. What is the meaning of danger? Danger means what?
Pain.
Would you regard danger friendly to you? Would you regard something dangerous as pleasant? No. So there's a certain implications of danger. Oh, it wishes me harm. It's actually against me. It's trying to deceive me into this, and it's obviously unpleasant. The most obvious, it's painful. So these are the implications then of these pleasing state of mind, possibility of sensuality, pleasing thoughts that I have, that I'm enduring, not acting out of. So I'm trying to discern the danger. So this is actually not in my favor. To what extent? Why? Contemplate that direction further. Understand it. Clarify it. Remove any doubt in regard to it. I mean, I can tell you this is exactly what the danger is, but that will become like another fact to the listener who is not free from danger, free from this passion, free from passion. So then they will just assume the fact as if they are seeing it in these things. But it's like, yeah, but is that resulting in this passion? No. So you just got a new piece of information that's currently inspiring for you. But you want to have your own effort of investigation of these phenomena that endure on account of you being sense restrained and not giving into it when it arises. And the danger will become apparent. The similes from the sutta that the Buddha used will become apparent.
The sutta says, how does he live in such a way that he's not overwhelmed by desire and grief?
Exactly. So you will not be overwhelmed.
And that's in a way, that's saying also what the danger is. Being completely overwhelmed.
Oh yeah,
by desire and grief.
Sure. So yes, exactly. Why is this state that I'm enduring, that I'm not giving into, where is the danger of it? Right here, right now. Not in 10 years, not in 10 minutes. Danger should be apparent in that thing that's there, pressing me, trying to overwhelm me with desire or grief or one way or the other.
You want to see the whole significance of
exactly
that pressure, then taking the pressure.
So nobody denies that there is a pleasing aspect in consuming the bait. The bait is very tasty.
Yeah,
so that's not to be denied. Oh, okay, it's ugly. No, it's not. It's beautiful. But there is a danger hidden in that thing, that if you were to understand correctly, that beauty will be unable to overwhelm your mind with desire, because you will see through it. So what is that danger that is like burning embers that will kill you, that every time you engage in sensuality, and you have been doing, each time you've been re-exposing yourself to it completely ignorantly, unaware of it, and making yourself, because of that, subject to death and suffering every single time.
So this is the deer herd simile that we always speak about, called the bait. So a deer trapper does not lay down bait intending well-being for the deer herd, but instead he does so that the deer might eat it unwarily by going right amongst the bait, And by doing so, they will become intoxicated and fall into negligence, and then he can do with them
whatever
as
he
he
wants.
pleases.
Yeah. So that's exactly what we just said.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this pleasing thing, the bait that you don't see as a bait? Oh, but this is not for my well-being. If the traps are not set for your good, so the sensuality then is not for my good. As I said, you don't see that, but the work is to see it, to discern it in that sensuality, in that which is beautiful and enticing, and that you obviously automatically, because by seeing it as beautiful, you're automatically seeing it as friendly. You're automatically seeing it as non-threatening, as harmless, and that needs to change. So like, but why am I seeing this? Like, even that, you don't know how to see danger, but then question yourself that which you can. You do recognize that sensuality, like say the something, eating something agreeable or seeing somebody agreeable, the pleasant aspect of it, you are taking it as harmless.
Yeah, that offering.
Why is that? What is your basis? What is your justification for taking that pleasure as harmless? Where did you get it? Who told you should? What is the basis for feeling absolutely entitled to experience pleasure of the senses? Like that's the most natural thing. Well, what is the basis for your belief that it's the most natural thing? Where is that basis? Where did you get that idea from? You just assumed it. On account of what? You don't have a clue. And yet here you are. Your whole world revolves around it. Something that you haven't even actually thought through. Oh, but why am I regarding this as pleasant? That's another line of questioning you can apply on that same level.
Why do I think this is good for me?
What do I think? Why do I already take this to be good for me?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I already assuming that this is worthy of desire and engagement? Why do I assume that pleasure on that emotional level is not my enemy? Millions of questions you can ask if you have generated the right basis through the sense restraint and virtue. Then they'll start to pertain to the actual sensuality that you're experiencing, enduring, subjected to, and not acting towards. So it's exactly that. Oh, the deer herd, the trapper does not set with a good intention.
Yeah.
He sets the traps so to harm whatever he wants to catch, not to make the life better. And they say, oh, so sensuality is there to trap me.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I assuming that it's friendly?
Yes, I could do.
And see, that's what I mean. Like, if contemplating danger is too abstract, well, contemplate that which you can see, which is your attitude towards this which you want. It's wanted, but why is it so wanted? Why is it that I can't say no to this? Why is it that I'm not in control when desire arises? Why is this pressure? And the only choice I have is to give in or grit my teeth and not give in. But why? I do actually want to be. Why can't I just say, go away? Or stay now? Why am I not in that position? Why am I being overwhelmed?
Pressured, yeah.
Pressured by that. And if you don't see that as a problem, well, no matter what the Buddha's instruction will make any difference to you. Because it is a problem. The utmost, the greatest pleasure, it is overwhelming you. You want it. And even if you get it, you're the luckiest man alive. Yeah, that's secondary. The fact is you were completely under its thumb, even before you committed to it. And if that doesn't bother you, means you're ignoring the most obvious. Right? the hunter comes in, catches you, drags you around, and you just pretend it's where you want to go. While the hunter's there in your face, laughing and torturing you.
The fact that you are enticed, full of desire, towards
overwhelmed.
Yeah. That in itself is
that's the root of the problem. If sensuality would not be like that, it would not require or imply loss of perspective, loss of mindfulness, and everything else. It would be wholesome. It wouldn't be underlined by more greed and more aversion and more pressure.
So,
So that the deception is there. That's why the Buddha always compared it to a bait, to a trap, because it's deceiving. It's not what it seems like. It's not what it shows itself.
The enticement is enticement. It's saying, it's pulling you towards. Look here, take me, eat me.
Look at this breadcrumbs leading you to the prize. And you contemplate the nature of that setup, you will see the nature of the setup of sensual desire.
The simile of the deer herd is trying to it's about 4 types of contemplatives, 4 types of monastics. So the first deer herd eat food heedlessly by going right amongst the bait that the deer trapper has set, and they get caught. So like the first type of mendicants, people who are unmindful and unrestrained.
So there is no any sense restraint, there's no virtue. They just, when desire arises, they just act.
Yeah.
By body, by speech, by mind. They just, when the itch is there, they scratch it. That's it.
So that's just normal. That's normal person.
That's
basically.
pretty much everybody, yeah.
And the second deer herd, they see what's happened, to the first deer herd, and then they shun the bait, but instead go live in the deep forest. But when that food becomes too scarce,
they come back.
They become too weak, and then they return to that bait and eat heedlessly and get caught.
So that's the second type of people who, even without the Buddha's teaching, would experience discontent and pain on account of that sensual desire, and they would have enough intelligence to recognize it. So you don't need to practice Buddhism to see that these desires are fleeting, cannot really be satisfied, are controlling. Your whole life revolves around it, and many people kind of recognize what's the point. So there are some who would then, okay, let me do something about that, but then they shun the bait. See, they got this desire, say the sense desire, the pressure, or in regard to the beautiful objects, sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, but they don't understand the root of the pressure, the problem, the lack of. They don't understand that the mistake is yours in misperceiving it as pleasing, not seeing the danger of it. They think the danger is the problem is in the objects, so they shun all the objects. So they determine that they will never engage with anything pleasing in the world. And that's the comparison to the run on top of a mountain. They would avoid anything that could entice them. So you go into a level of ascetic practice where you just deny any object of the senses that could be pleasing. But the problem with that, the pleasure or displeasure, is not defined by the objects. It's defined by your state of mind. So in other words, you can be living on top of a mountain, but if you haven't understood that pleasure is rooted in your mind, your desire, you will then, even things that were before displeasing, you go used to it, and now the mind relishes them, and you start finding pleasure, sensuality in things that you didn't used to. In other words, something else starts to serve as a purpose of a sensual object, because your mind framework is still the same. And you can't sustain that. You cannot sustain that not engagement with sense objects. Sooner or later something pleasing will come up. You will see, smell, hear, taste, touch something agreeable, and given that there is no understanding where the root of the desire is, the agreeability of these objects will mean desire in my mind. So that's that second deer herd, when the grass and food runs scarce and they run out of it in the mountains. When they do get back to things they need to do, see, hear, smell, taste, touch it, they get trapped, because they haven't developed any wisdom in regard to the bait, in regard to the trap. They only saw, it's a trap, let me run the opposite way. But then they encounter a trap, and there is no knowledge of how to avoid the trap, or rather not eat the bait within the trap. So if you enter the cage, but you don't touch the bait, you eat everything else, you can leave the cage. Mara won't see you.
Yeah, that's true. But so some people see the danger of overindulging.
Yeah, people would see the dissatisfaction that comes with sensuality, especially if you keep indulging in sensuality. Dissatisfaction becomes obvious to people. That's why many people turn to religion in general, in spirituality and meditation, not specifically Buddhism, because the dissatisfaction is not that hidden and subtle. People see it, but then how you go about it determines whether you still remain within the same domain of the domain of the same hunter, or you actually free yourself from that trap.
Because there's this. So you don't indulge, you remain restrained some of the time, but then when things get difficult, so you remain restrained on your own terms,
But when the pressure's too much,
you
come down the mountain and you go back to the bait.
So your whole, say, Monday to Friday,
Sure.
You
sure.
have worked hard,
Yeah.
restrained. You haven't indulged.
Yeah.
Now
But
you're
then Saturday,
tired.
Sunday,
Now it's just
or you do a retreat
retreat
for a month, but then the retreat's over, and you're back to the. So that's what I mean. You can do a retreat.
Yeah.
You can be moderate and not indulge, but not for the sake of avoiding the bait, but for the sake of understanding the trap. So then, when you can't sustain that environment of the mountain anymore, of that extreme withdrawal, you still won't eat unwarily. You still won't take the bait. Even if the bait is right next to you, you will not take the hook. But for that, you need understanding and wisdom. So yeah, that's exactly that second type. I think many people would revolve around that. The first impulse in somebody who sees the problem with sensuality is to shun it. Okay, I will never engage with sensuality ever again. But as I said, that determination, you cannot sustain that. Sooner or later it will change. Sooner or later something against your will, pleasing will arise, and pressure will overwhelm you just like before. Then you might try to double down on your asceticism, as giants did, and create all these extra elaborate ways of avoiding, but fundamentally you are fighting the battle in a completely misplaced field. It's not there. The problems, the root of sensuality are not there. Yes, you need to be sense restrained, but the sensuality is not in the object you are restrained against. Sensuality is in the pressure that you cannot endure in your mind. The Buddha would have outlined that as a way of enlightenment. And he said himself, if there was the extreme practice of asceticism and avoidance in the world, I have done it. To the point he refused to breathe. He didn't eat. He was so skinny he would grab his spine through his stomach. And he said, and none of that actually freed me from sensuality. He tried it. So if there is anybody who can rightly say, I've tried all this, I am the one. He tried it for the purpose of freeing himself from that pressure, and it didn't free him. And what is to say for those who didn't even try that level of asceticism and tell you asceticism is the way to free yourself, but they're not even trying it to that extent. No, the Buddha also thought he was the way, tried it before he was the Buddha, to the absolute utter end. There was no more than that to attempt. So he said, whatever pain to experience I have experienced, whatever on account of endurance, renunciation, asceticism, self-torture I have experienced, and no higher pain than that, and I tell you, it was not a way to enlightenment. It was not a way to free me from desire. And that's when he started looking in other directions. So it's inevitable to resist against the bait, but if you know enough, you won't go too far and waste all the effort climbing on top of a mountain just so to return back to the bait and be retrapped. You will actually start to understand more.
And there was that story about Buddha in the past, where these ascetics were having some conversation. But the thing is, there was this practice whereby ascetics would go up into the mountains for 6 months and practice extreme asceticism. But then the food over there would run out, and then they would have to come down again and then get fed by the lay people, good food, get fattened up for another 6 months, and then go again 6 months, whatever. From time to time. And it's like that balance. Well, I will indulge, but because I renounce, it's all equal, it's all good.
Means whether you look
evens out.
Whether you look at the renouncing or you look at indulging, you don't see where the problem is. You don't see that the problem is in that perception of sensuality, pressure that you're under, not in object or saying no to the object. That's what I mean. You mustn't be trying to get rid of the thoughts of sensuality in a sense of like you shouldn't welcome and entertain them, and you must be sense restrained beforehand and value of virtue established. But now when the thoughts arise, if you get rid of it, it's like, I don't want to think about a trap. I mustn't think about the trap. But how will you then understand it? How will you understand then how you are trapped? You need to allow those thoughts to endure, because in themselves they are not sensuality. Your lack of restraint, your action, you choosing to act on account of pressure, that's where sensuality is there. And the Buddha said it countless times. Because often people would just assume, it's this object, so any form of pleasure you get, any form of joy you get on account of things in your life, sensuality. It's not. Sensuality, as the Buddha said, it's basically not rooted in the beautiful objects in the world. It's the man's desire and lust that he revolves around, that pressured desire, i.e. lust. That's why sensuality is in those objects. For an arahant, for Tathagata, who has removed desire and lust in his thoughts, beautiful objects remain. So he still sees the beauty, perceives the beauty, tastes the beauty, hears the beauty. There's no lust in regard to it. And that's the final deer herd in that same simile.
We must go to the third deer herd. So the third deer herd make their dwellings near the bait and eat it carefully.
Right.
But the deer trapper then makes a barrier around the bait so as to see where the deer come in and out. And then he finds the herd's dwelling place.
So he doesn't catch them on account of direct engagement with the bait, but he finds other traces that they left behind carelessly.
And this is the same with contemplatives who have given up indulgence in external sense objects and extreme ascetic practice, but have not renounced internally their desire for pleasure. They are physically restrained, but not mentally restrained.
Yeah.
They act unwholesomely out of pressure of views.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the pressure of views. So, see that the third group of deer, they saw engaging carelessly is a problem. Right over a mountain is a problem, because sooner or later you come back or you encounter somewhere else and you get caught because you haven't understood the bait. What if we stay nearby, study the bait, and don't take the hook? But then they don't consider other things that the trapper would see. Footprints, the this, the that. So they don't learn how to be invisible to Mara, so he gets and catches them. And the Buddha compared those basically traces that you leave to that so you're not engaging physically with the desire, with sensuality, you're celibate, you're perfectly restrained, but mentally you still entertain the same value of pleasing objects, the same thirst for them. Now you refuse to think about women or coarse sensuality or breaking the precepts, but you think about other forms for the same purpose. Stuff you will eat, how you will not be bothered by displeasing sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, how you will build your little palace protected by your whatever attendants, how you will never experience any hardship, never experience any elements. So all of that becomes the place for your sensuality. So all of that still makes you very much concerned about catering to your senses for pleasure. So then Mara the trapper will still get to see you, because you left all the footprints around the bait and you just follow them back. So the Buddha compared that to these the views that you would have. When you read when the views are mentioned in the suttas, people will often think on these metaphysical ideas about the world, about a life, about the universe. It's not. Views means standpoints and opinions that you feel blindly justified about. Sometimes people say, you shouldn't hold to fixed views. That's a view that is fixed. So it's not a choice. Views are not a choice. But what views and how you hold them, that is a choice. Oh, I will not hold any views because views are always bad. Well, that is your view that you just stated to me. Thus, you contradict yourself. So you realize, you will have to hold the views. But are those views right views or the wrong views? Are those standpoints and opinions authentic, transparent, not contradictory, or not? So practically speaking, views are anything. Anything from, you shouldn't be wearing your robe like that, or monks should get up at 6 o'clock, or we shouldn't be doing this, or you should be doing that. And you will know whether you took the view or not if by somebody disagrees with you. Do you feel ill will? Do you feel irritation? Yes, you're holding the views, even if it's the purest views on the purest Dhamma. So is there passion in regard to the standpoints, in regard to what should be done, in regard to how we should behave? Is there ill will if that's not met? Is there irritation? Oh yeah, that's why Trapper still sees me. I left the trail. So it's like when I say not holding on to views, it's not like I don't have an opinion on how monks should wear their robes. No, I do. I have hundreds of opinions. But if you disagree with that opinion, or if you prove that opinion is wrong, my emotional state will be completely unaffected. So if you prove me wrong, I'll gladly accept that. If you just disagree because you're angry, I'll just see you as a fool, factually. Either way, I don't care, because I don't hold to these views. Doesn't mean I don't have the views. But that's another thing, the same principle of, these sensual objects are a problem. Let me run on top of a mountain. Oh, the views are a problem. Let me have no views. Exactly the same thing. People do the same thing in regard to the views. Try to not have them. Try to never have them. It's like, but that is a view. Now you're of a view that you mustn't have any views. And so you're contradicting yourself. So you're inauthentic completely. No, have all the views you want. They were never the problem. The problem was basically underlying emotional state of that view. And as I said, you have the view, the purest view, the cleanest view, and somebody comes and spits on it, mocks you for it. Do you feel emotionally disturbed? Yes, means you are wrong to that extent for holding that view, and that's why you're not free from sensuality. So internally, you have not removed the passion. So that's why it's subtler, obviously, than indulgence and complete asceticism, but it still mirrors the same principle of sensuality. Like, do you relish the idea of people agreeing with what you said? It means you're emotionally invested in your opinions and your views. You're the third type. Do you feel threatened emotionally with the possibility somebody will disagree or disapprove of what you said? You are emotionally holding your views with passion. You are the third type. Doesn't matter the content of your view, the content of your opinion. The facts, doesn't matter. Are you indifferent, equanimous in regard to it as a basis or not? That's where the problem is. That's why you're not free from sensuality. So that's it. Don't try to not have the views, just try to not be moved by them. And then you will also not lose perspective, because you will not hold on to views now for the emotional protection, but you will actually be able to, wait a minute, I'm having these views, but are these views right? And then you look and you find out you're wrong, and you will not be threatened. Because often people are threatened by experience, by hearing the opposing opinion on some important topic. They feel existentially threatened. And they, often you hear that. Like, this mustn't be said. No, anything can be said. What's the problem with, you're going to try preventing people from saying things? It's impossible. Because they hold on to their views so much that just the thought of the opposing view fills them with anxiety. But actually, if you stop holding on to your views, not try to not have them, you get to understand, and then you actually get to explore and push the directions that you were afraid to before. And actually, that's how you also get to abandon the wrong views of a Patujana. You need to be fearless, because fundamentally, you are not a Sotapanna because you regard yourself as the owner of yourself, as permanent, suitable for pleasure, all these things. So, if these worldly views upset you, how much more you're going to be upset emotionally if you start underlining your existential views. So that's why it's necessary to start seeing that there is no emotional justification for any view that you have, right or wrong, doesn't matter. If there is an emotional response, emotional basis, emotional involvement, you are wrong. So if you can get upset on account of what somebody said, you are wrong. Doesn't matter if they're a complete idiot, doesn't matter. From your point of view, if you're interested in practice, you are wrong. If you have emotional investment in any view, in any opinion, in any standpoint.
And that's obviously what.
So that's how you become careful in regard to the views and standpoints that you have to have, and that's how you learn to not leave the tracks, and you become the fourth type of herd. I mean, the Buddha had. If you judge by the quantity of views, he had a view and opinion on everything, Dhamma or non-Dhamma. But what he didn't have is passion underlying any of it.
So the fourth deer herd make their dwellings where the deer trapper cannot go, and thus cannot be caught. So those are the contemplatives who are both externally and internally restrained. They do not act out of pressure, craving, and they develop jhana. They place the place where Mara cannot find.
Yeah.
So that's the only successful group.
Yeah. So there is basically a refusing to accept and give in and welcome and attain any external justification for yourself, for your standpoint. That's how you become the fourth. See, the third type uses views and opinions about what should be done, sense restraint and virtue, that's important, but they take that as self-justifying. So they build their place well within the grounds that Mara can enter. But if you say, well, even that the most obvious factual thing, you do need to be sense restrained and keep the virtue. That's my view, my opinion, that is factually right if you want to practice the Dhamma, but emotionally, I'm not invested in it. And that's how you build the shelter where Mara will not see you. You're invisible to the trapper, to the hunter. And that's the jhana we spoke about in all the previous talk as well. So, not acting out, learning how to endure first and then abide in that state of non-acting, non-standpoints, not revolving around this should be done, that should be done. If the mind does, you don't take it up. You let it happen, but you don't act out of it. And you are withdrawing from the Mara's domain.
Invisible.
Yeah, become invisible.